You've heard two excellent examples of that so far, and you're about to hear a third. And Paul Elliot, WB6CXC, who will talk about the WsprDaemon GRAPE reporting network. This is something many of you are hearing about and seeing for the first time, so I hope you enjoy. Rob and Paul?
There's two of us. We have one microphone.
We'll trade off.
Okay, we'll trade off.
That's great.
Oh, good. Okay. So welcome. We're here to discuss an alternative way to make the measurements the GRAPE 1 and GRAPE 2. This work is based upon the WSPR monitoring system that I developed. It's an open source software package that is available for WSPR recording, and been developing it for about seven or 8 years. And I realized that in the last year, some advances in hardware and software have allowed me to add GRAPE recording to this system. So I think I'm going to talk about the receive section first, because there's a transmit element here that has also been introduced that allows the WSPR transmitters to deliver signals with from which one can derive Doppler shift information like it is gathered by GRAPE from the WWV system transmitters. So Paul Elliot, WB6CXC, who is next to me, is going to discuss the transmitter that he has developed in the last year that can be the source of very high quality Doppler shift measurements. So I'll let Paul go forward. This is, let's see, how do we get to the next one?
You had one slide.
There's.
Why don't you talk to this?
Okay. Well, the goals of this system is to, of course, the initial goal of the system and a feature that remains a part of it is to make measurements of WSPR transmissions. But the goal of this part of the project, which started about a year ago, is to add GRAPE measurements to the system. And that's possible because we've a recent introduction and discovery of a receive device, which I'm showing here in person, which is this is a RX888. This is a software-defined receiver module that is commercially available from China, about $160. And this is a 16-bit analog to digital converter that runs at up to 130 megasamples per second, although we run it at 64 megasamples. So this device, when combined with this newly discovered, really, Phil Karn's K9Q radio, can process the samples that come from this and produce almost unlimited number of receive channels. So for WSPR reception, there are receive channels for the WSPR bands, but this part of the project that I've implemented in the last 6 months or so is to add receive channels for the time channels. So this one device can be doing receiving all of the WSPR channels at once, and processing them and uploading them, and now can process all of the 10 time channels, WWB, VB, through the 25 megahertz WWV, as well as the 3 CHU channels. All of these can be captured, recorded, and then uploaded to the GRAPE server in the format that's compatible with the GRAPE 1 and GRAPE 2. So as you can see, the resulting charts, like the one on the left, is a chart of the uploaded data from a receive site. I forget, I don't even remember where I got this. Perhaps this is one that we've established. Dave Schwartz, W0DAS, has put one of these receivers about 4 kilometers from the WWV transmitters. So we have this as our reference receive site. And this validates that the system is accurately and continuously recording WWV transmissions. And in this case, of course, there's no ionospheric propagation, so you're seeing a straight line for all the complete 24 hours. On the right, you're seeing a chart of the Doppler shift from one of Paul's transmitters. So this is a WSPR transmitter that is GPS disciplined and transmits simultaneously on all of the 8 WSPR bands. And this same receiver, at the same time that while it's recording WWV, is listening for and recording the transmissions of Paul's transmitter. And that information is displayed by this Grafana page, which is the work of Gwen Griffiths, G3ZIL, my partner and collaborator here, who will be giving a presentation later today on how he analyzes some of these results. So we're looking at a single device, commercially available at reasonable cost, that can be plugged into a host computer over a single USB 3 cable. I'm showing here in person the 888, and this is a small Linux computer that you can host it. And together, there's one needs to modify the 888 to include a GPS disciplined oscillator input, but other than that, this is all commercially available. You could have these on Monday from Amazon. So then there's the issue of modifying it for external GPS. So that's the goal here, is to make these recordings and to do them in a commercially available, from commercially available parts that are available at reasonable cost and immediate delivery. So the transmit side of those, though, is not available on Amazon. And I'd like
Working on
I'm trying to move to the next page, and but I don't.
the arrow.
Where is there? Oh, okay. And the transmitter part of this, the WSPR transmitter, is the work of Paul, and I'd like to introduce him and let him discuss his WSPR Sound 8.
Good morning. Okay, good. Yeah, I'm Paul Elliot, Whiskey Bravo 6, Charlie X-Ray Charlie. I got hooked up with Rob and his co-conspirators. It's only been about a year, I think.
I think less than a year, actually.
And because we were all kind of focusing on stabilizing and commercially available transceivers, transmitters, and receivers. Got started with the beautiful little QDX transceiver, but that thing wasn't stable enough for the kind of work that we all wanted to do. So anyway, through that, got hooked up with Rob and kind of learned the need for and the advantage of having, well, what we could do with using WSPR or FST4W, which is a similar WSPR-like protocol, and realized that we needed a transmitter that could transmit on multiple bands simultaneously. As Gwen will show, there's value, and as you've seen with the WWV, there's value in comparing what's happening on different frequencies at the same time as solar events occur. So I came up with the original one, was called the Beacon Blaster. It puts out 6 channels of transmit simultaneously. You can configure it to mode. It could do WSPR or FST4W. That was modular, flexible. We didn't know what we really needed, so I wanted to keep things loose. But after working through October's partial eclipse, we're pretty happy with the functionality we decided on. So I came up with an updated version. We call it the WSPR Sound 8. I'll show you a picture of it. And we're going to have one at the desktop presentations later if you want to. I'll even open one up if you're curious. So it's something that's easily deployable. And that was one of the things, because people, maybe they don't want to have a full-time setup. But in the case of October's eclipse, people hauled these transmitters and receivers out to remote sites, set them up for the eclipse event, preferably a day before, so we got some baseline data. And so I wanted something that's plug and play, basically. So that turned into the Beacon Blaster and now the WSPR Sound 6. Anything else? Okay, here's a picture of the WSPR Sound 8. 8 channels. It's really pretty simple inside. It requires a GPS antenna input, but it also requires 10 megahertz reference, typically from a Bodnar or something like that. Use the GPS for basically frame time synchronization for latitude and longitude, because I recalculate the transmitted grid square. With WSPR, the data contains that's encoded in the WSPR frame is call sign, a power level, just a numbered, basically dBm transmit power, and your grid square, your HAMS grid square is your location. You take latitude and longitude and some simple conversion, you get grid square. So we do all that. Now, one of the tricks is, 8 channels, or often you just use 6 of them. You don't want to put up 6 different antennas. So came up with, you can see that little box with the sitting on top. The one that's not the Bodnar, sitting on top of the WSPR, is a 6-band combiner. And it takes the 6 outputs, and because of the filter topology I use, these 6 outputs, the combining filters don't really interact with each other very much, so you can combine them into a single output, and that feeds one antenna, multi-band antenna. Or you could run separate antennas. Now, one of the things about this box, in order to make it simple and flexible, the outputs of each of the 8 ports, essentially a digital 1-watt square wave. Now, if to be a good citizen, you don't want to transmit a square wave. So you need external filters. And by the way, each of these outputs can be any frequency you choose, anything from 1 megahertz to 60 megahertz. Any frequency. Typically, you're going to use ham band frequencies. So this filter combiner, the filter part of it takes the square waves and turns them into nice, clean, legal sine waves, and then combines them to go out to an antenna. It's got some other stuff that makes it a little bit easier to use, I hope. Just takes a 12-volt wall wart power supply. So to put this thing up, you need an antenna, you need a splitter combiner, you need a bag of SMA cables, you need a power supply, you need a Bodnar, and you need or some other GPS DO, and then you need a GPS antenna. And let's say you configure the thing over a USB port, you can monitor over a USB port, but you don't need to have anything plugged into the UPS port. Once you've configured it, you plug it in, it gets GPS lock, and it runs. And let's see, can we move to the next page?
I think that, yes.
No.
Oh, hold on.
There we go. Just so you can see, here are, on the left, there's the transmit spectrum. You can see basically 1-watt output on this is 80 meters, 40 meters, 30 meters. See, I got them all. 20 meters, 15 meters, and 10 meters. And this is at the output of the combiner. You'll see some hash down at about minus 60 dB relative to the carrier. And that is intermod because the transmitters, my coupler combiner isn't perfect. There's a little bit of feed through from port to port. And it does create a little bit of intermod, but it's down well below legal limit. It's not aware of it ever being a problem, but I just want to be honest. There's, but that's better than a lot of transmitters on their own. So. And then on the right, you can see we can transmit both in WSPR mode and in FST4W. This is FST4W 120, which has got roughly the same data rate and frame length as WSPR. The difference is FST4W, first of all, you see the outer, the spectrum with the higher level signals, sidebands. That is the WSPR. That is the spectrum of raw FSK signal, which is what WSPR uses. FST4W uses what's called Gaussian frequency shift keying. It's a minimal shift Gaussian GFSK, and that has a filter that smooths the transitions from one frequency, one tone to another as it transmits, and that gives you this lower filter shape. It's kind of irrelevant to what you guys want to do and the results that we get, but I think it's pretty cool. I just wanted to show. I'm using a simple DSP in software. Inside of the box, there's It's basically an Arduino-style computer. I ripped off the design of one of the Adafruit computer little boards. I've got the processor chip on there, and it's not on a carrier; it's on the board. But it's basically using that design, and it looks like one of these Adafruit boards to the development software. Anyway, so I'm using that in software to control the frequency shift, and I've got digital filtering for when we're doing GFSK, and I turn off the filtering when we're doing Whisper. So that's
the transmit side.
That's the transmit side. So
Okay.
and so the thing is, GPS, it's stabilized. It's accurate frequency. Frequency, there's very little spectral noise on it. It's basically as good as the GPS DO, which isn't perfect, but it's orders of magnitude better than what we need, the stuff that we're trying to measure. So it's useful, it's easy, it's powerful. I've got a little company up in Friday Harbor, Washington. Apparently we're in the business of losing money, but that's not why I'm doing it. I'm retired and it's a lot of fun. So, but I'm trying to make these things available. We've got, I don't know, 4 or 5 of the previous version still out in the field transmitting or ready to be deployed. Got a couple of the new ones. Actually, I got one transmitting in Friday Harbor now. And got one that's actually going to stay in the neighborhood here, and a couple more that one's in New York. I don't think it's been set up yet. So anyway, we're going to have some ready in time for this coming eclipse. So we've got to have a good representation of multiple transmit sites, multiple receive sites, lots of different paths to analyze on lots of different frequencies. And I think that was, one more page. Okay, this is yours now.
Yeah, okay, well, I'll briefly on the receive side, as I mentioned at the beginning, we have utilized the RX 888 single USB 3 connection to a host computer. This is an example of such a host computer. The 888 is, as I said earlier, easily available and completely compatible with the GRAPE network. In addition to making GRAPE observations on all 10 bands simultaneously, and those contributions you can download them from Bill's site. They're up there already. You're also at the same time making Whisper observations and recording those to the WsprNet. There's actually a third feature also involved, available through this system. All of this runs on hardware that's inexpensive, commercially available from Amazon and other sources. So it does require, we're working with John Ackerman and Tapper to put in make available a kit that includes the accessories needed to make the 888, well, I'm not showing not the 888, but anyway, this is to make the 888, adapt it for the external clock input, the amplification and low-pass filtering that's required on the RF input is an accessory that also is important. Paul, in addition to the transmitter, is making available a low-pass filter board that chops off above 30 megahertz, which is needed. This has an internal 60 megahertz low-pass filter, and running at the lower data rate, there would be aliasing from the signals in the 30 to 60 megahertz region. So Paul's not only working on the components for transmission of frequency accurate transmissions, but also helping us make the 888 more easily integrated into existing systems. So you basically need an antenna, a few parts, a little bit of time to make the external clock input, but you can be on the air in a day and making all these recordings. And hopefully this lowers the barrier. It also means that quite a few of here's an example on the right of Paul's low-pass filter that can go ahead of the 888. It does include there's many subtleties in deploying a receive system. And one of the advantages of this 888 system is that it allows you to look at the whole spectrum, the 0 to 30 megahertz spectrum, while you're making these recordings, grape recordings. And it is important to understand that good recordings require that the whole system be accurate and free of excessive RFI. And really the only easy way to do that is to be able to look at the whole spectrum. And make sure that your antenna system is working well, the grounding system and so on, and RF distribution doesn't introduce imperfections and interference into your measurement set. So a successful system requires a whole bunch of components. Fortunately, I think we've minimized the number of components and the amount of hardware and tweaking and cabling that's required to make that the case. Paul and I have the hardware here. We'll be demonstrating it in the, I guess it's tomorrow afternoon. Or you can come and see us, during the conference itself, and we'll be happy to go into in far more detail than I've been able to do here. So I don't want to overrun my time, so I don't know. And my watch ran out of battery, so I don't know what time it is. Okay.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So.
Thank you very much, Rob. Thank you very much, Paul.